In my life, I have never ever touched any sort of Apple computer. No MacBook Air, no iPad. I usually stick with like HP, Asus, and things like that. But for the price, I decided to jump in and get the M2 Mac Mini, and I must say, I am very impressed. Stay tuned, because in this video, I'm going to be talking about the pros and the cons when it comes to the Mac Mini, and if I think this is right for you or what upgrades you can do to it. Anyways, let's get right into it. Now, there are three things about the M2 Mac Mini that really stands out to me, and that is the size, the price, and the speeds you get with this device. Not necessarily in that order, but I will be going over each one of those as the pros, and like I said, later on in the video, I am going to be talking about the improvements or where I think the M2 Mac Mini kind of falls short. Now, before I actually get into the whole comparison video, if you are thinking about getting an M2 Mac Mini specifically to game on and strictly just for gaming, I do not recommend this. If you want something like that, go ahead and get a PC if you're really into heavy gaming so you can upgrade your things later on, and you could kind of choose what you want as far as building a PC. So the very first thing I want to talk about when it comes to the Mac Mini has to be the price. So the base model is $599. Right now, I'm recording it on Memorial Day weekend, so there's a lot of sales where it's actually $499, and if you're a student, you can also get the $499 price. Honestly, if you are a student, I highly recommend this computer because it is really great. So with that $499 price with the base model, you are getting 256 gigs of storage along with 8 gigabytes of RAM. And you may be saying, really? 8 gigs of RAM? Is that worth it? Well, for the average user, I think it's fine, especially if you're somebody who just wants this as the family computer, or you just work with a lot of spreadsheets and things like that. I think this will be fine. But if you're somebody like myself who is buying it specifically for video editing and content creation, I highly recommend you go ahead and bump up that 8 gigs of RAM to 16 gigs of RAM. I actually got mine from Micro Center, and instead of charging a whole $200 more, they had it on sale for $750. So I did that, and honestly, when editing videos, it is super smooth. Then again, I don't do a lot of really heavy editing. I feel like the editing I use, I'll just have 3 or 4 video clips along with animations, and this thing runs smoothly. Now, another thing that comes with this low price is if you have an iPhone already, or you want to just dip your toes into the whole Apple ecosystem, this is a great way to do it. For $499, $599, you can't really beat it. However, it doesn't come with a mouse, a monitor, or a keyboard, so keep that in mind whenever purchasing this. But then again, the mouse I got was like $10 on Amazon, along with the keyboard, which was like $20, and the monitor is completely up to you. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to this device has to be the size. This computer is extremely small for everything that it can do. It is crazy. It'll complement any desk setup. It's not going to take up too much space, whether you lay it flat on the floor, have it vertical like I do myself. Some people even get mounts to put either at the bottom of the desk or on the back of their monitor just because they don't want other people seeing it. But if you want to show it off, feel free and do it. But my point here is that whether you put it on your desk or you mount it somewhere, it is so small that it's not going to take up that much space, and you're still going to have a lot of room to do whatever you need to do. So when it comes to the size, I am very impressed that it can do so much while being so little, so small and thin. So very, very good. Now, the next thing I want to talk about has to be the speed. And this completely depends on the amount of storage that you get with this device. I know, a little weird, right? I did get the 16 gigabyte version with the 256 gig storage, which I'll do a test right now. So while running this, it gives me, it's writing at like 1600 megabytes per second, reading at 1520. So I think those are pretty good speeds for the average user. If you do have the 512 gigs of storage, it actually comes with an additional chip. Now, since you do get that extra chip on the inside, you will get pretty much double the speed, so at least 2000. But honestly, most people aren't going to need those speeds. Even for myself who, moves big files around, I'm talking like 15 gigs. it's really fast, really snappy, and honestly, unless you're doing heavy editing, the average user should be fine with this, whether you're doing homework for school, whether you're somebody who just has it as the family computer and you aren't doing super crazy heavy projects. I think this is going to be great. Now, another really cool thing that you can actually do on this M2 Mac Mini is that you can go on YouTube, you could go to my channel and hit the subscribe button because that'll help me out a lot. No, but really, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you can see more upcoming content. So everything I've mentioned is by far amazing when it comes to the M2 Mac Mini, but here are the cons, or where I think this can improve overall. So the first thing has to be the ports for me. Honestly, in the back, you only come with 2 Thunderbolt ports on the base model, and I wish there was some sort of like SD card slot or some more ports just so I can plug more things in. Now, what I did to solve the problem with the ports is I actually got myself one of these hubs. Now, there's a lot of different companies who sell vertical or horizontal hubs. I picked this one because it does have a SD port and a micro SD port, and on the bottom you can actually add an SSD. I kind of like just moving my files from there directly to the video editor rather than having it on my actual Mac, so I can save space, because honestly 250 gigs of storage can go by really quick, especially if you're editing a lot of videos. But if you're somebody who, like I said, is just using this for homework and things like that, I think 256 gigs is fine. But if you want to add more, you can definitely get an external SSD. But I love this dock, especially for video editing, because these speeds on this SSD are crazy. Let's test it out. So we're getting a write speed of 942 and a read speed of 849, which honestly is really good, and it's really snappy. Yes, it's not as good as the actual M2 Mac Mini, but I think it works just fine whenever editing off of. Honestly, that's really all the speed you need. I feel like you'd need more speed if you're doing crazy video files or if you want to game on this thing, which I already said I don't really recommend, but hey, if you want to, try it, but I really don't recommend it. Now, another thing that I really didn't like besides the port has to be the space, but like I said, you can either get more space by getting an SSD inside of the hub, or what you can do is actually just get an external SSD that you can plug in and then run it from there. But honestly, I think you should be good with either or, depending on what you're doing. Like I said, the average user I don't think is going to need super crazy speeds, but if you're heavy into video editing, heavy into things like that, I would definitely go and upgrade that, or even just get the M2 Mini Pro. I think that's what it's called. So when it comes to the M2 Mac Mini, I think this is perfect, especially for the price. You're paying $599 to dip your toes into the Apple ecosystem, which, yes, can be a little overrated, is what I thought at first, but honestly, I really like the way everything works, especially if you're just using this as the family computer, if you're using it for school, or even for content creation. I think this is really great. Just if you are using it for content creation, I would highly recommend just going up to the 16 gigabyte version. Like I said, Micro Center did have a sale on it, so I think that's pretty cool. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, please leave them down below. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.